You know, come to think of it, for as much as I'm talking, I'm probably going to keep most of the stuff in. I don't know. If I am, then why the heck did I not read that note? You know what? I apologize for not reading that note. I apologize for anyone who's watching this episode. Or that episode, depending on how the editing goes. Went and saw a couple movies recently. The Fantastic Four, for one. Didn't like that movie. I didn't like that movie at all. There's... I kind of like how they... The one thing I actually did like about the movie was that they came up with a new way to explain Reed's stretch powers, where it's... He's not stretching himself, he's actually bending the universe around him to actually, like, shorten the distance between him and whatever his goal is. And by everyone else's perspective, it looks like he's the one stretching. But then, that makes sense when he's, like, stretching, like, in a linear fashion. But what if he's wrapping his arm around something? Like, if he's encircling his arm, like, to wrap somebody up. How the hell does that work? Also, the past Reeds in other Fantastic Fours had the ability to, like, for the most part, move their molecules in whatever way they wanted to. But this one was able... So if the past Reeds, like, wanted to change their ethnicity, theoretically they could. This one isn't technically as powerful as those past ones because he just bends space. Yeah, okay, so technically bending space is not as powerful as manipulating all your molecules, I guess. But anyway, how is it that this comparatively limited ability Reed Richards able to change his ethnicity when he goes to South America, or wherever the heck that was? Also, how the heck is a kid with, like, virtually no street smarts worth mentioning able to make it all the way to South America and hang out for however long that was? Another thing is, like, Sue didn't go to the Planet Zero, which, another thing that upsets me. You have the Negative Zone in the comics. Why didn't you just call it the Negative Zone? Why'd you have to call it Planet Zero? Yes, sir. But I digress. Sue, because of the explosion, Sue winds up getting her powers from that. That explosion actually extends out several miles. Why is it Sue's the only one who got any powers out of that? Didn't like what they did with Doctor Doom. If you want a good Fantastic Four movie, try and find that Fantastic Four movie that they made back in the 90s, the one that never came out. Because for those of you who don't know, it's one of those things where you have to keep making movies of a property, or else you'll lose the rights to that property. That's why Fox keeps making Fantastic Four and X-Men movies, is because if they go for so long without making movies, then the rights to those movies revert back to Marvel Studios. So, I think Fox owned the Fantastic Four back in the 90s. I think they owned the movie rights to them back then. I can't quite remember who made that, but yeah, they made that to keep the rights, but they never intended to release it. I actually think that's actually a really good Fantastic Four movie. Granted, it's stupid and cheesy, but that's kind of what a Fantastic Four movie should be. How they made the Thing work, he looked great. He looked every bit as good, if not arguably better, than Michael Chiklis's Thing, at a fraction of the cost. Then the effects on Johnny were actually pretty good. I can't remember how, to be fair, I think the effects on Reed back in the 90s were, like, the worst of the three movies, but, again, we're not judging the Fantastic Four movies entirely on graphics. Story-wise, that was actually closer to their original origin story as opposed to pretty much anything else. The characters were a little bit more, together. One thing about the 90s one that kind of got me a little weird was, Reed and Victor are both in college, but the first time they meet Sue and Johnny, they're both in, like, I think Johnny's in, like, grade school and Sue's in middle school. So Reed's, like, 10 years older than her. But then again, the 2015 Fantastic Four, Jesus Christ, I wish they came out with subtitles, because there are 3 movies called the Fantastic Four. But yeah, the 2015 Fantastic Four is like, Victor's like 7 years older than Sue, and yet he's creeping on her. So that's... Yeah, the 90s version actually came the closest to an actual decent interpretation of Doctor Doom. I think my personal favorite one was, they actually had the Mole Man in there as like a secondary antagonist. Or, I think it was the Mole Man, He looked a lot like him. He was really obsessed with jewelry. But yeah, he took, the Mole Man kidnapped Ben's blind girlfriend. Now, this is after Ben, I think, lost his proper girlfriend, because now he's a rock monster, and then wants a, this is just before he develops a relationship with, the blind woman, whose name I can't remember. But yeah, the Mole Man's holding her hostage. Doom comes in, starts wrecking the shit on the Mole Man's place in order to steal this one gem that the Mole Man has. And then the Mole Man holds the blind girl hostage, and he's like, take one step closer and I'll shoot. And Doom just casually walks up, takes a close look at her, and says, so? That got a legitimate laugh out of me. But yeah, it's... these movies trying to give Doctor Doom powers, yeah, okay, he has had a crap ton of powers, both from magic and technology, and he has gained godlike powers on numerous occasions, but turning him into basically just another version, another victim of the Fantastic Four incident in the one, and now in this one, in the recent one, he's just basically a demigod. His powers are whatever the story needs of them to be. And the thing is that they make him insane. They make him... yeah, why does he want to do this? Because he's crazy. No, that's not how Doctor Doom works. Doctor Doom is an egoist who wants to take over the world, and it's... one of the things in the comics is that he's not strictly evil, because the people of Latveria love him, because he does amazing things for the country. He keeps that small, impoverished country safe and thriving, because he's just that good at what he does. Also, it adds a little extra whiteness to his blackness for a more complex shade of gray, because he has seen multiple parallel futures, and the only ones that actually are doing well are ones that Doom rules the world in. So that's why he's trying to take over the world, partially because of his ego, and partially because the world is pretty much doomed, no pun intended, if Doom himself doesn't rule. I think I heard a rumor that the Fox gave the rights to the Fantastic Four back to Marvel for something. I think it was that Fox has the rights to... Fox is planning on making 2 live-action X-Men TV shows, and they need to get those rights from Marvel, and Marvel got those in exchange for the movie rights to the Fantastic Four. So, do I want to see Reed and Ben and Johnny and Sue in the Avengers or this Marvel Cinematic Universe? Not really. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Johnny Storm make a cameo appearance in one of the Spider-Man films, because those two are buds. But seeing Doom as the villain for the Avengers, that's something that looks that's something I would love to see, because Doom, yeah, he's the primary antagonist and an arch nemesis to Reed Richards, but at the same time, he's also been an Avengers villain, and after he beats Thanos, there's not a whole hell of a lot in the Marvel Universe that can top Thanos. Doom is one of those, if handled properly. And I think that the MCU can handle Doom properly. So I'm excited to see that. If that ever comes to fruition. Hopefully it does. Another thing, where the hell did Doom get the cloth to make that green cape of his? I don't recall him going in with anything green, let alone that, for making that. Where the hell? Ugh. Anyway, that's an aside. Saw the trailer for Captain America Civil War. Ooh, I'm hyped for that movie. Ooh, gee. Man, you got superhero versus superhero movies coming out, 2016. It's, Iron Man versus Captain America alongside Batman versus Superman. One of these movies I'm excited for. One of these movies I can't give a shit about. And the thing is, I can't really talk too much about Civil War because there's a big thing that happens in Civil War towards the end, and I can't talk about whether or not that may or may not happen, what the effects on the MCU would be if that particular thing does happen. Excuse me, because there's people out there who don't know what I'm talking about. Like, for example, in Winter Soldier. I knew who Winter Soldier was. My friends knew who the Winter Soldier was. But a lot of the people I went to go see the Winter Soldier with were shocked to find out, oh, Winter Soldier is this guy. Yeah, I'm still avoiding spoilers on talking about that because very few people actually know who the hell the Winter Soldier actually is. And that surprised the heck out of me, but looking back on it, I was like, yeah, why would they know who the Winter Soldier is? I mean, I guess it was a surprise back in the comics, and we read the comics, and we've known about it, like, for a long time since. But then you got the people who's never read the comics, and, like, the Winter Soldier's not, like, the biggest freaking Captain America villain, like the Red Skull would be. Hell, Captain America's not even the biggest hero. Yeah, everyone knows Captain America by sight, but does anyone really know that much about the character? Not really, because, I mean, he didn't have as much exposure as, say, the X-Men or Spider-Man did with, like, really successful cartoons back in the 90s. But I can talk about Batman vs. Superman because I don't give a shit about that movie. Quite the opposite. I'm pissed about that film. Because it's another film where clearly Batman's gonna get his ass kicked, and like, the Superman fanboys need to have that little ego stroke. Yeah, Superman's invincible. Nothing can possibly beat him unless they cheat and use kryptonite. Yeah, there are Superman fanboys who think using kryptonite is considered cheating, and that kryptonite doesn't affect them either because there's been occasions where Superman's powered through it, or they are so quick to cite this one example where Batman tries to use kryptonite against Superman, and Superman just blows it out of Batman's hand, and the kryptonite just goes flying off somewhere. Now, I'm not saying that Superman isn't significantly more powerful than Batman, but bear in mind, Batman's fought guys more powerful than him all the time. Look at Clayface, look at Killer Croc, look at Bane. Batman doesn't go into those fights with a pair of bat boxing gloves and say, okay, let's do this. No! If he fights someone who's more powerful than him, then he uses his smarts. The fact is, like, Batman can beat. I'm not saying he handily curb stomps Superman every time they fight. I'm saying that Batman has the ability to beat Superman. If not by kryptonite, then by creating some sort of phantom zone, which is a thing. You can trap Superman in the Phantom Zone. Batman can do that. Or creating some sort of drug or ray or whatever that inhibits Superman's ability to absorb yellow sunlight and thus depower him. Batman's a genius. He can do that too. Yeah, so from the looks of it, it's like the latest trailer that came out has already spoiled the fact that Batman's going to lose, and that Lex Luthor, who, by the way, this is not the Lex Luthor that we all know, this is why he has hair, this is actually Lex Luthor's son, which, that's something, I guess. Honestly, I'm kind of impartial to it. I mean, if you wanted to actually, I kind of like it this way, because, yeah, the Lex Luthor I know and like is an Ubermensch. He's basically trying to be Batman, but a little less altruistic than that. Because Batman is, like, the pinnacle of human mind, body, and spirit, but at the same time, it's... Well, actually, I think both Lex and Batman are basically the Ubermensch, because they are the pinnacles of mind, body, and spirit, but they both follow their own set moral codes, which is Batman is justice, basically. Justice to the extent where he's willing to save the Joker just as readily as he is some random innocent person. And Lex is more of the selfish, well, comparatively selfish goals of trying to better oneself, but that's not inherently evil, that's just his own moral code. And the thing is, like, the more common variant is that Lex puts himself on this high pedestal, and then Superman comes along, and he's, like, far beyond the height of that pedestal, and thus Lex tries to kill him because he's jealous. That's not the Lex I like, even though that's the more common one. The one I like is... Lex is actively trying to put himself to this height, trying to push himself as far as he can, and although he won't ever help anyone along their path, what he wants is for other people to go through on that path for themselves. He wants the rest of humanity to push themselves to reach their limits and push beyond those limits. And Superman showing up is like, well, why bother if we're never going to be at that level? Lex Luthor sees Superman as... When Superman comes along, it's like all the people put their faith in Superman and they don't try anymore. And Lex doesn't like that. Superman is stagnating human development because of just how great he is. And that's one of the reasons why Lex hates him. And that Lex is the Lex I like. But, yeah, I digress. There's the trailer, okay, the trailer also shows the first time Wonder Woman shows up. How do we know it's the first time? Because up until... Yeah, she shows up just at, like, the big monster shows, which I'll get to him in a sec. And Superman's like, is she with you? And Batman's like, I thought she was with you. So clearly, this is the first time that Wonder Woman appears on screen in the movie. May not be the first time that Diana Prince shows up, but it's the first time that they're introduced to the character of Wonder Woman, so she pretty much comes out of frickin' nowhere to help save the day. Yeah, so, yeah, Superman-Batman fight. It's already been clear that Batman gets his ass kicked, which... Fine, I understand that Superman can beat Batman, but... Superman fanboys need to understand that Batman has the ability to beat Superman, too. Just because he's not as powerful or fast as him, doesn't mean he can't. Because, goddammit, if Superman can't be beaten in any circumstances, why the F do we care? But, yeah, the monster being Doomsday... Because when he shoots energy blasts out of his freaking eyes and mouth, and he has the S on his chest. I swear to God, I thought it was Bizarro. That's what I was hoping for. I was hoping it was just like a failed attempt at cloning Superman, and thus you come up with Bizarro. But no, you're just going straight to frickin' Doomsday. First of all, the first movie is frickin' Zod, one of Superman's greatest opponents, someone who's able to fight Superman on his level. And now, you're going with Doomsday on the second one? That's like the first Avengers movie starting off with Ultron, and then the immediate second Avengers movie is frickin' Thanos the Titan, and then you scatter out from that and do all the solo Avengers movies. It's like, this does not work! You can't just do Doomsday on the second movie, because after Doomsday you have Darkseid, and that's it! There's nothing you can do after that! Anyone who's under the impression that DC and Warner Brothers isn't trying super frickin' hard to play catch-up to Marvel is delusional. Because Man of Steel wasn't as successful or anywhere near as good a movie as Iron Man. I could debate that, but that's one thing. the fact is that they're trying to start off, they're trying to jam as many Justice League members into one movie as possible to just introduce them and then spin off from that. That's obviously what they're doing. They're trying
Can we trade a few things?
to get that Avengers money before the comic book movie, before the comic book movie fad, for lack of a better term, dies off. Before they're trying to get that Avengers money before comic book movies are no longer popular. And also, it's because of the fact that they've apparently already done, like, the Jason Todd's already apparently been knocked off in this darker DC universe. Yeah, this is something I'm expecting. Is they're going to have another Batman movie, and it's going to be Red Hood, and it's going to borrow very heavily from Winter Soldier. And I'm not caring as much about spoiling that because a lot more people know who the Red Hood is as opposed to what Winter Soldier is. Also, again, I don't give a shit about the direction that they're taking with the DC movies. If it turns out... Now, Suicide Squad, I was hyped for that movie, but I take a look at this. This looks like Hot Topic threw up on the cast. This looks like frickin' cheap garbage. Every time I see Joker and I see damage tattooed across his forehead, I know. This is why I'm not going to go to the theater to see it, because I'm going to be screaming at the screen every time Joker's on screen. But as much as I'm not hyped for Suicide Squad, I'm still going to watch it, of course. I'm going to laugh if Suicide Squad turns out to be a bigger success than Batman vs. Superman. Because can you imagine that world where the villain-centric movie turns out to be bigger than your two biggest heroes?
Sir, if I might bend your ear for a moment.
What's up, Codsworth?
So gracious, sir, I do appreciate it. I've always had such admiration for you and your family, ever since the day my visual senses were first switched on. You and the missus, so good with young Sean, and so trusting of me to look after such a newborn bundle of joy. It just warms my nuclear core. So you can imagine the distress I felt when the bombs fell, after you fled to the vault. I searched but found no evidence of your death. I could only hope you all made it in time. And when you returned, I was overjoyed. I admit I ran a full diagnostic scan just to make sure I wasn't malfunctioning. But the news of the missus and Sean, believe me when I say it takes a true hero to live through that.
I'm no hero, Codsworth. Believe me.
Don't sell yourself short, sir. In such a bleak world as this, think of all you've witnessed and all you've done. In my 200 years, I've seen it tear good men and women apart. But you, sir, you have remained the very model of what humanity should aspire to be.
Thank you, Codsworth. That means a lot.
No thanks necessary, sir. I wouldn't hear of it. I truly believe if the Commonwealth is to turn itself around, you're the one to do it. Now, not another word. I stand firm in my belief. Let's get back to it.
Always happy to get a new perk. Thank you, Codsworth. You're my bro, man. You really are.
Is this a better...